Yes, guys, welcome back to SFeatleyTV. We're here for another episode of F1 Legends. Please do hit the like button, do hit the subscribe button, do hit the share button. I am now just going to share this in the group chats as well as on Twitter. Chris Paul. Chris. There you go. Just going to quickly do some more. Right, done. Done. Do hit the like button, do hit the share button, hit the subscribe. I need a hair transplant. Nah, you should be doing this before you should be doing this before the stream. Yeah, I know, right? But I've been rushed out of my feet, so give me a break. Give me a break, right? I'm just gonna literally post it now, actually, right? So, where is it? There's the picture. Paste. Right. So yeah, do. All right, calm down, you. Right, I know you said that. I know you're biggie big bollocks because you got to the Champions League final, but you ain't won it yet. So calm down. Right, here we go. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Formula One because we are doing another episode, and this is episode 3, and this is about the only other British champion to win 3 titles, and that is Sir Jackie Stewart. Obviously was the benchmark for all the British talents because no one actually won a championship more than 3 times apart from him until Hamilton came along. So but if you look at towards British success in the sport, like Graham Hill, Jim Clark, Mike Hawthorne, all these great talents, James Hunt, Damon Hill, Jenson Button. There's so many world champions from Britain. You'd think there'd be a lot more. But I will put the link in the chat now. So if anyone does want to come on, right, and have their say, ask any questions, the link is in the chat as usual. So I'm just going to run down through some of his statistics, go through the stats of him. So obviously a 3-time world champion. Now you've got to bear in mind, back in the 60s, you had only about 10 Grand Prix, if I can remember. His first season, I believe, his first season was in 1965. They had only 10 Grand Prix compared to what we have now, which is 23. His first season, he looked up to the one and only Jim Clark, who is again from the borders of Scotland. Lost borders of Scotland. Right, lad. And I would love. I'm probably going to do Jim Clark at some point. So I've got some memorabilia because a friend of my mum's, I think it's her husband, was a mechanic for Jim Clark back in the 60s. And they had some memorabilia, like an actual model of the Lotus 38 and everything. Bradford John, the link's in the chat if you want to come on again, by all means. So great, loads of memorabilia. I'd love to show that as well to you guys. But yeah, they had about 10 Grand Prix back then. So we're going on. 1965. obviously his first entry was in 1965 at the beginning of the season with the so links in there. Go on. 1965 South African Grand Prix. His first win was in Italy in the Italian Grand Prix, and it was his 8th start for in Formula One. His last Grand Prix was the United States Grand Prix, with his last win being a few races before the German Grand Prix. Now, his last Grand Prix, his last entry, he might have his last entry, but like, where was his last race start? Right? That's a quiz question. That is, a quiz question that will catch you out, because I'm going to tell you now. He had 99 entries, but he had 100 entries, but only had 99 starts. Now, I'm going to tell you that later on why. But he had 27 race wins, 43 podiums, 17 pole positions, 15 fastest laps, career points of 360, which is not as much because they didn't get scored as much as we do now. And after John Surtees's death in 2017, he's now only he's now F1's lasting surviving driver from the 1960s. So he raced in other series during his career, like the Tasman Series, which is like a New Zealand formula back then, which had a few races. Won a couple of them, didn't win a championship, though. I think that was only in one season. And that was won by Jim Clark. He raced in the USAC Championship, didn't win any of those, the 2 races he raced there. But drove the teams. He started off at BRM, or Owen Racing Organisation. Matra International, he then switched to, or Matra Racing Team, where he won his first title in 1969. Then went to the Tyrrell team for 1970. Now, the 1970 was won by Jochen Rindt. And for F1 fans, what is Jochen Rindt famous for when he won that title? I'll ask Brethren John. Brethren John, right? Here's a quiz question. What was so significant about Jochen Rindt's championship winning season?
Sorry, can you come again?
Sir?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, can you come again? It's just that I was having problems with my network.
Yeah. So Jochen Rindt, what was his most just ask quickly, because obviously Jackie Stewart won in 1969. Then his friend Jochen Rindt won it in 1970 in the Lotus. But what was so significant about Jochen Rindt's championship compared to all the others?
Okay, like he won in 1970, right?
1970, yeah, Jochen Rindt.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I sent to be corrected. If I'm not mistaken, no. Like, I'm just saying that I remember Jackie Stewart won in 1969, 71, and 73, right?
Yeah.
And in 1970, Jackie Stewart finished second, right? I'm sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what?
No. I'm saying in 1970, Jackie Stewart finished second, right?
Yeah, but what was so significant about Jochen Rindt's championship compared to all the others that have happened?
No, I stand to be corrected by you on that, because I know that for Jackie, he won in 1969.
Yeah. What we're saying is, what was so significant about Jochen Rindt when he won his championship in 1970?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Is because he's the only posthumous world champion.
Yeah.
He died in the Italian Grand Prix, and his wife had to pick up the trophy after the season finished.
Oh yes. Like, I thought that you were talking about in terms of aerodynamics or something like that.
No. Well, it actually was in terms of aerodynamics, really, because
they
had this massive debate about, because they had the new 72, but the Lotus 72 had never been raced without wings, and his teammates couldn't do it without wings.
Yes,
because it was
exactly.
so dangerous. Like it
Yes,
was
very
nearly
much.
undrivable. And he said, "I'll take because you have to go fast down the straights." He was like, I'll hang the consequences. I've got to
Oh
go
yes.
fast here."
Oh
And
yes.
what
Oh yes.
happened was he didn't have the safety belts on. The barrier wasn't
Yes,
screwed on
exactly.
quickly, so he went under the barrier. But then again, if he had went to the medical facility that the driver GPDA had, and as well, he wouldn't have survived. He would have survived that accident.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
Definitely, yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna go through because obviously he had a Grand Prix in 19 after Jackie Stewart's first season in 1966 after an accident during the Belgian Grand Prix where it was heavy rain, dark fog, you could barely see down the road. He
Missed,
slid
yeah.
off because of aquaplaning. He hit at 165 man at 165 mile an hour, hit into a telephone pole and then into a shed before resting before a farmer's outbuilding. The steering column was pinned to his leg, so he couldn't get out, and
Yeah.
fuel was seeping into the cockpit.
Oh
So
my.
he was
Oh
obviously
my.
worried he was going to catch fire. But
Yeah.
luckily, the Graham Hill and Bob Bondurant, who had crashed nearby, but not as bad, and managed to get out the car, see him in an accident, and helped him out of the car because there was no safety marshals.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
there's not none of the measures we have now.
Yeah, true.
Because obviously, because if we had the measures we had now, we wouldn't have crashed into a telephone pole. We would have crashed into a barrier. But
Yeah, very much.
but yeah. So he had that accident,
Yeah.
um,
Um.
and what happened was is that because there were no doctors, there was no medical facilities either. He just became a massive advocate for safety. He started taking, he took
Yeah.
his own. After that accident, he took his own health insurance. He attached a spanner to the steering wheel of his BRM,
Yeah, true.
and started to speak up. Said, "This isn't right. This is we should be getting. These cars are getting faster. They doubled the size of the engine, doubled the size of the power, and you want us to go faster, and you're not making it safe. And you got to make it safe." And a lot of teams, even drivers and the FIA terms, they were like, "Well, if you think motorway is dangerous, slow
Yeah.
down a bit. Don't drive so fast."
Yeah, exactly.
Right? The press officers' attitude was, "It's part of the sport. If you don't like it, you're chicken." Right? They
Yeah.
called him basically a chicken for
Yeah.
being a coward, and when he's still winning championships, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
And some of the drivers, like he made a rivalry with Jackie Yates because he didn't
Oh
agree with it
yes.
either. He thought it detracted, it took away the sport by having the danger there,
You can say that
and
again.
you
Taking the fun out
became
of it.
the best by having the danger.
Yeah.
Which is they let's just put it right. They had a completely different attitude to life and death back then.
Yes,
Simple as
exactly.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe like on that note, from it need to like it was like the Belgian 1966 whereby he had the accident, right? So I'm happy that like from that time he was mainly responsible for his campaign, as you're saying, and very much an advocate. And I'm happy that like he forever changed how Formula One is seen. And I remember like the death of his friend. Was it in 1968? Jim Clark,
Jim Clark, yeah,
whereby
yeah,
yes,
I can 1968.
yes, like his friend and hero
Mm.
died, and was it Lesser also who died in 1968? Because I sent it because it's just that it's been so long. Lesser and Jim Clark when they died, and like the following week they were told that like they had to race in Germany 1968. I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
that race. Yeah, whereby it was like misty, like full of mist and
yeah,
also
because
heavy
it
rainfall.
wasn't, the rain they were told to race,
Yeah,
and Jim Clark just didn't look right that whole weekend, and
yeah,
it wasn't an F1 race. The thing is, it wasn't an F1 race; it was an F2
Yeah.
race.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what happened was the Graham Hill came to the accident, and it was like he said it was a deflating tire, but what happened was he went
Yeah.
off, hit one tree, which flew him out of the
Yeah.
car, and he broke his neck hitting the other tree
Yeah.
because he had no seatbelts. But that's why then he got them to form the GPDA, which we now have, obviously, because we
Yeah.
formed
Yeah.
up in
Yeah. Yeah.
1994. But he formed the original GPDA, which is for people that don't know, it's the Grand Prix Drivers Association. So it's basically like a union, but like you'd have a union at work, and it was to help them form protests, put pressure on the organisers and the team manager, the track owners to make change, and they would make boycott races
Yeah.
like 1967. 1969, sorry, they were all planning to go to the Nordschleife, which is just the massive 187 bends of Nürburgring. And but the people that don't know is that with the Nürburgring is that you took off 13 times in a F1 car on the Nordschleife. Well, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
cars aren't meant to fly. Right?
Yeah. Very
They
much.
aren't meant to fly. So and there's no barriers, there's no nothing. If you went off, you went down into a ditch, right? And you'd be lucky you survived. And even then, you had no marsh. You need a whole army to marshal. We did a whole safety podcast on Checker Flag Show,
Yeah.
and I suggest everyone with DNF1 podcast go subscribe to DNF1 podcast. They will be back doing the Checker Flag Show. They are very busy at the minute, but they will be back
Yeah.
doing it. Don't worry. But we had a mold safety thing, and it doesn't meet grade 1; it meets grade 3. It needs to be grade 1, and
Yeah.
you need basically to build its own town to be able to control it, because it's so long. You'd have to have people in different places in different parts of the circuit, and all like medical facilities, different parts of the circuit, same as the helicopters, same anything, because it's so long. And they boycotted that race. They got it moved to the Hockenheimring. 1970, they put pressure on the Belgian Grand Prix and got that boycotted as well. He got them to start wearing safety belts and
Yeah.
encouraged the drivers to wear them. And
Yes.
I'm talking full harness safety belts here. Proper full helmets. Back then, they only had about half a. Usually, sometimes you'd have half a helmet, or not even a
Yes.
helmet. You've got in the
Yeah. Yeah.
50s. They
Not
used
even.
goggles and the hats, right, and a cloth cap. And you'd think back then, you're like, are you mad? Are you mad? Honest, but they knew nothing of safety back then, and
Yeah.
they were full face. He got them to wear full face helmets. They weren't like the helmets we have now, which is the massive, big designs that they have now. But despite they then got Zandvoort, Zandvoort, for example, they got that boycotted in 1972 because it didn't have barriers, it didn't have any sort of safety measures whatsoever. So what Zandvoort, they spent a lot of money to build Armco barriers all the way around the circuit, made runoff areas, installed fire crews at certain parts of the circuit, because obviously the main part that was fire back in them days. They didn't know carbon fiber back then, so when they built cars, they built them light, and some parts were magnesium as well. I even remember one time there was a team that built a car purely for magnesium. They
Oh,
built
really?
a concept car purely
Oh,
for
okay.
magnesium.
Concept. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Concept. Right.
you no, they raced it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did race it, and they wonder
Wow.
why the guy died when he hit the wall, caught fire and died.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He
It
just
explains
burned like
why.
an inferno. It
Nice.
was awful.
Wow.
Straw bales they used to have on the side of the
Oh,
circuit,
yes. Yeah.
which didn't help either. And yeah, if you type in Grand Prix the killer years,
Yeah.
it gives you that description about the concept car and everything. That's where I found it out on that documentary. It's really good watch. Like Von Trips in 1960, where he hit the wall, where he was at Italian Grand Prix when he hit when he went off the circuit and crashed, he crashed into the crowd, which killed about 7 of them. And yeah, so but they made one-off airs, installed fire crews, got the main danger of the car's medical, like basically medical facilities as well. Despite that, Roger Williamson ends up dying during that Grand Prix.
Yeah,
Because
how
what happened
tragic.
with I think the tire delaminated or exploded.
Yeah, tie.
Flew him, hit the barrier and it made him flip over. Caught fire. What was worse is they didn't know have red flags back then. It wasn't like back in Grosjean's accident where he had a red flag.
Yeah, exactly.
And they stopped the race straight away, and they carried on the race. There were people still racing. One of them, David Purley, who got so much credit, I think he got a George Cross for this, jumped out the car, went across the circuit, right, and tried to get the fire extinguisher and everyone to try and help out. And people were just like watching him.
Yeah.
He's trying to lift the car and people were just watching him and they're just like, well, you're not going to help him out. Just like the guy is dying. Just
tragic,
help him out. Like everyone kept going and everyone kept going. Like, and even then at the end, like he's waving drivers like, what the fuck are you lot doing? Honestly. Yeah, so the only one who came out of credit that was David Purley, but despite all that, it still had so many dangers to it. And towards the end of his career, I remember, towards the end of his career, he was going to do the 100th Grand Prix as his last Grand Prix, which was Watkins Glen in 1973.
Yeah, 73.
The end of the season. Wrapped up the title, the job's done. His teammate, who he'd personally trained up and recommended to Tyrrell, Francois Sever.
Yeah.
I believe it was. He was like going to be the number 1 driver next season, but he didn't know he was retiring, so he thought he'd go out and qualify and try and prove it that he was going to be the top dog this season. And unfortunately, he proved it too much and hit the barriers, and he just went too fast and made a mistake and died during that accident. That's why now. When I said earlier, he might have had his 100th entry at the United States, but his last start was the race before because he didn't start that Grand Prix. Out of respect for him. So, so go on.
Yeah, like it's just that you hit a nerve when you talked about his last race in Belgium, right? 1973.
Watkins Glen night.
Yeah. I don't know if he. Oh yes. Yeah, but 1973. That's when he won his 3rd title, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like did you see? Okay, like I don't know if you still recall the race. You know, like it brought memories. Like to Lewis race at Imola. You know, like whereby like he had an accident, like just a small. Okay. Well, like when he hit the like the barrier, and of course he was back. If, like I said, to be correct, was he 14th or something at Imola this year? Then later on raised until he went into the podium. Like I think he finished second, right? Second, right?
Lewis.
Yeah, at Imola, right? So like I'm just
what happened? Yeah, he dropped to 8th.
8th, okay. Yes, so like when you touched upon, you know, like his last race, I remember that he finished 4th, and he had a tire puncture, and like he had to quickly go in the pit and resume the race from 19th, and you know, like he had to finish somewhere along the point so that he could win his championship, his 3rd championship. So he finished 4th. So I'm just, you know, like highlighting out like his race was similar to Lewis race at Imola.
Yeah, I can hear what you're saying on that one, definitely. So, but yeah, Yeah, big up Talk Menu in the building. Yeah, so obviously after all that and after his career, he went on to doing some what some drivers do, which is commentating, and he commentated for commentated for ABC, covering it from 1971 to 86, covering NASCAR, F1, Indianapolis as a commentator. And
NASCAR was a bit old.
Also for the Indy 500, he acted as a host as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the he was a play-by-play announcer for the Luge at the for the Luge at the Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics as well. And also the equestrian at the Summer Olympics as well. So just did a wide range of commentary because of his insightful analysis towards what he was commentating, plus the Scottish accent with the way how quick he could talk. Some of his compatriots that were doing that with him, they used to remark him as like he spoke as fast as he drove, and but I think the main thing is when after he'd done some also coverage for Canadian and Australian TV in 1986 to the mid 90s. It was 1997 when he returned to Formula One, but as a team owner, he returned with Stewart Grand Prix in 1997, and that had previously which he did compete with in the previous lower formulas, but then it made that step up to F1, and with their first race in the 1997 Australian Grand Prix. The early success of the first year came at the rain-affected Monaco Grand Prix, where Barrichello finished second, and then the following year, 1998, was less competitive with no podiums and very few points whatsoever. After Ford acquired Cosworth in 1998, the team risked designing and building a new engine for 99. The SF3 consistently competitive throughout the season in 1999, and the team won at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring with Johnny Herbert, while Barrichello took third place as well, so in France and pole in France, and then briefly led his own race at Interlagos. The team was later bought by Ford and became Jaguar, so it became Jaguar Racing afterwards. And then obviously we all know after 2004, Jaguar went out of business, and it was subsequently bought by Red Bull. And we have what we have Red Bull today, but it was all started by Stewart getting into Formula One in the first place, and just loads of sort of
history.
Loads of history. I mean, he's had two sons, and one of them, Paul Stewart, is a racing driver. And he also later ran Paul Stewart Racing with his father, selling it in 1999, which was obviously the Stewart team. And just loads of it's a very well documented and really well respected advocate for the sport and ambassador for the sport. When you think of Jackie Stewart, you obviously think of Formula One, and Formula One back in the 60s and the 70s is that attachment to the history. I mean, I wouldn't say it was my favourite, obviously. I don't think he was my favourite. I don't think he's one of the best. He's the best of all time. What?
Who was your favourite around
growing up?
Yeah.
apart from Hamilton, it would be Schumacher. I grew up watching Schumacher.
Yeah.
So for me, it was Schumacher beforehand, and then. But to me, if you think of Jackie Stewart, I'd rather think of Jim Clark. To be honest, it's just unfortunately Jim Clark was cut short. I think Jim Clark probably in 1968 he would have won that title with that car because that car was revolutionary. The 49.
Yeah. That was
Right.
under BRM, right? Or was it Mantra? 1968.
Was
Was it like
1968
yeah? Which constructor was it? Was it
Lotus?
Matra? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Lotus 49. And
Yeah.
what was so significant about Lotus 49, what made it so good, is that the first time that the engine had been built to fit the chassis, so
Yeah.
it's like integrated units, and because you do that, it makes the car so much lighter.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so much faster. And then obviously 1972 when it's and obviously with the 72, it was more like it just looked so much more modern with the side pods, the refined aerodynamics, because the 49 was great without the aerodynamics, and obviously wings
Yeah.
came into effect. And the reason why we have restrictions now, I mean, someone asked a question, why do we have restrictions on them now? It's because we have designers that will take things beyond their limits. And Colin Chapman was one that took things beyond their
Yeah.
limit, and then when it failed, he took it even further. Like, for example, the Spanish Grand Prix with that car, Graham, with Graham Hill and Jochen Rindt, he decided this imaginary idea with all that downforce, I'm going to add even more to it, right, on either side. And then by the end of about halfway through the Grand Prix, both of the rear wings, with that amount of downforce, had caved in on the back of the car, wrecked the suspension and put them in a wall because there's too much force, and that's why now you have restrictions. Like,
Yeah,
this is why now
exactly.
with ground effects, they're going to have restrictions next season
Much more.
because
Yeah.
it was becoming dangerous. They've even tempered down the rear downforce this season because they were getting so much downforce from the rear of the car.
Yeah,
And this is the thing,
exactly.
they'll keep making it and doing it and doing it and doing it until it becomes
Yeah.
too much.
Definitely. Yeah. And Steve, I don't know if you still recall, was it in 2017? Back in 2017, when Sir Jackie Stewart was asked about Lewis Hamilton, and he said, "I know he's not going to be, and he will never be the best of all them all." So fast forward 4 years now, I'm sure you retract his words, right?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? Because Lewis is just a beast. Like I'm not a Mercedes fan, but you just have to appreciate what is good. You just have
Yeah.
to.
You have to. You have to appreciate when someone's achieved what they've achieved. Right. And it's a bit rich saying that when he's dominating and winning races like that and
Yeah.
fighting tooth and nail for a championship. I remember when he said that about Mansell, because Mansell didn't have any money. He had to
Yeah.
remortgage his house to be able to compete in Formula
Yeah,
One and get
exactly.
into Formula One. Right? And he never said he'll never get anywhere. He'll never win a Grand Prix. He'll never win a podium. Right? He'll never win a
Yeah,
championship.
but
Right?
see what
And
happened.
despite yeah, he had hard. In 1986, he should have won it, but luck ran out on him. Right? 1991, maybe not, but a couple of times he had chances and
Very
he
close.
didn't have the luck at all. And 1987 didn't. I don't think he had the luck there either. And he should. Yeah, and the 1992 it obviously came good in the end. And he quite rightly won the championship. And I just feel is that sometimes he's given that attitude when like people can't afford the sport,
Yeah.
can't afford enough to get in the sport, like Hamilton, like Mansell,
Yeah.
and that they've had to fight tooth and nail to get into it. Like Hamilton
Yeah.
had to fight until he got Ron Dennis to sponsor him and give him the backing he
Yeah.
needed to get
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
And
Even Checo, right? Can we talk about Checo too? That
yeah,
like he had sponsors sponsors in Mexico.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. But you can get sponsors in Mexico. I mean, Hamilton struggled with that
Yeah,
in
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and that's why he needed to get Ron Dennis specifically to back him all the way. Which is why I think if it weren't for Ron Dennis, we would never have seen like
Yeah,
Hamilton
true. You can say that
probably to where
again.
he is now. So
Yeah, it's a very tough story.
yeah, and obviously then you've got Lauda in 2012 convincing him
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
there and
yeah.
stuff like that. But Jackie Stewart, I just feel at times he's never really sort of respected how much people have to
Yeah,
fight to get into the sport.
very much. Yeah.
At times, this is not
Mm.
denying his overall talent. His talent was um, outstanding, and the fact he could also pick out a driver like Sever, who I think he would have gone on to win a championship had he survived.
Yeah,
But
yeah, true.
unfortunately, sometimes people have to do struggle to get into it because of the
Yeah, true.
financial aspect.
Yeah, yeah. Finance is always the thing.
This is why I
Like,
agree about this Hamilton Commission thing
yeah, exactly.
because it's designed to help people
Yeah,
that are struggling to get into Formula One.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And yet he's battered by people for that. It's so amazing. And your thoughts on Niki Lauda versus Stewart, say Stewart. I know
Huh?
that no, like Niki Lauda.
Yeah, we did that last episode.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Like I'm saying, compare Niki Lauda and Jack Stewart.
I'll go Nicky Lauda myself, to be honest.
Right? You can say that again. Even though like he's got, I think like the margin is 2 wins, right? Because Niki Lauda is about 25 and
Yeah,
Jackie
I'd
Stewart
say Nicky
27 wins.
Lauda's better though. To be honest, he was a genius. To be honest, he was before his
Right?
time. He was that
Yeah.
first. Yeah, he was that first sort of driver to be able to. How do I put this? Be able to tell the team what he needed from the car. So he knew like how to get the best out of each car, set it up for every race. Um, not many drivers can do that. And James Hunt, for example, like he was more heart on his sleeve and just drive the shit out of the fitting and let the mechanics worry about it. Lauda was more about he was able to improve the car and improve that and help the team develop the car to how he needed it and
Okay.
how they needed it. So yeah, so for me, that's why I'd say he's Nicky was better, but I think probably Jackie Stewart's probably better playing the political side of it as well.
Yeah.
Nicky was just
Yeah.
straight up. He just no bullshit.
Yeah, he's
Right?
yeah, it's
Jackie
yeah,
Stewart was probably more political, sort of.
yes,
He
with
did
his
understand the
advocate,
politics of it because
yeah,
there's politics in F1. We all know
every,
this.
yeah, we know that.
And um, some people can play the politics very well, like your Prosts, your Stewarts, your yeah, Ferrari are great at pulling it as well. But and then there's some people who can't, and it's not as good. And they need to learn it. And I think that's one thing you need to learn when you get into Formula One, the
Yeah,
political
yeah,
side, and how to use it to your advantage. Because let's just face it, everyone use anyone to get advantage of Formula One.
yeah, as a stepping stone, that's the problem.
But it's like I said, is Jackie Stewart is always going to be a legend, right? Of Formula One, he's always going to be up there as like, I mean, he's for Britain, he's the only other driver to win 3 championships. If you look
Yeah,
at the success, like I said at the start, the success that that Britain has had in Formula One, you
it's
find it
astonishing.
bizarre that like he's the only other driver to win more than 2.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
for me, is like he's always going to be. We've probably got F1's probably got a lot to thank Jackie Stewart for, to being one of the people who spoke up against
very much,
safety.
yeah, very much, yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
think we had the maybe might have the safety eventually, but not to the. I think a lot of more drivers would have been killed back in
Yeah,
that
true.
days if it weren't for him speaking up about it. So,
Yeah, true.
but yeah, it's just. But like I say, as always, is that people might think it's safe. It's never going to be safe. Don't ever.
Yeah.
If you think it's going to be safe, you might as well start watching a different sport
Very
because it
much.
ain't safe. It ain't safe
Everywhere.
whatsoever.
Everywhere.
Right?
Just
And
yeah.
eventually, somewhere down the line, as much as we try and avoid it, as much as we try and be proactive to it, sometimes you just can't be proactive to it, and something out of blue, out of nowhere happens.
Mm.
Right? Cars aren't supposed to split in half like they did in Bahrain
Yeah,
last year.
exactly. Exactly.
They're not supposed to
Yes.
catch fire like they did in Bahrain last year.
Yeah, Bahrain last year.
Right?
Cruising.
It's just some things that you can't prepare for, and it just ends up happening.
Yeah.
And you just
It's
hope that the systems that you have got there already just help sort of do the job. It's
yeah.
like with like actually just speaking about Roman Grosjean, because I was going to mention this in Checker Flag show, but I'm going to mention this now as in major news is that he is not driving an F1 car or racing cars ever again.
Oh really?
He's not. His injuries are too bad. But
Okay.
Total Wolff promised he will race a car at some point. So Mercedes for the French Grand Prix, Mercedes are going to let him do a demonstration and drive around the
Wow.
French Grand Prix
Wow, that's nice.
circuit to to give him a chance to drive the car one more time.
Nice. Ah,
So
wow.
and then
Oh, that's
that's
just amazing. So, like,
yeah.
he's just going to be driving, but not
No,
being
he's just doing a
like the fourth
demonstration. He's
driver.
doing a demonstration. I thought he was being
Ah,
third
okay.
driver, but no,
Ah,
he's
okay.
being
Because the
he
third
can't.
driver should be Hulk, right?
Hulk. No,
I
their
know,
third
like
drive. Reserve,
third driver for Mercedes. Yeah.
their reserve driver for Mercedes is George Russell.
Oh.
It is,
Even
yeah,
though he's at Williams.
yeah. Because whenever they want to do a test, they get George Russell because he's
Oh.
under Mercedes. He's under Mercedes Academy.
Oh yes, like that I knew. That I knew like last
Yeah,
season, but now
that's when they've done tests that Williams aren't at. They've had
ah
George Russell in the car.
oh yes. I remember like last season when Louis had COVID, that I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah.
but
They
I
called him
just
straight
thought
off.
that maybe yeah, exactly. But I just thought that, like this year, like he's just going to be fully focused like at Williams. Wow, that's
Yeah,
new.
he is focused at
Wow.
Williams. It's just that if like a reserve
Okay.
drive, if they need him to do a test
Yeah.
and Williams aren't doing one, like they'll call him up.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's
Especially if
nice.
they're going to use him to replace one of the drivers at Mercedes at some point, which they are going to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
look at that
definitely.
performance as a kid. They are going to. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the case scenario whereby everyone at Mercedes Benz has got 1 year. Like this is their last year, so you can just imagine what can happen there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can just
absolutely.
imagine. Yes, but it's wonderful news to hear that at least Roman will be given the privilege to test it. Wow, that's nice. It just came out today, is it? The news.
Yeah, I think today it came out. Yeah,
Ah, that's nice. Ah, that's nice. That's new. That's new.
but yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there. We've said all we can about Jackie Stewart and why he's one of the F1 legends.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with someone else. I might do a team principal or someone. I might do someone different rather than
Ah,
just F1
that's nice.
drivers. But yeah, everyone do hit the like button as usual. Thanks for tuning in as always. Thanks, Brett and John, for coming on.
Ah,
If you
thank
could
you.
just once the broadcast is finished, can I just keep you just have a quick
It's
word?
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, as soon as it's finished, just stay and
It's okay. It's
we'll
okay.
have a
I'll
quick
stay.
chat. We'll have a quick chat after broadcast. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, mate.
All right. Okay. All right. Everyone, though, please do smash a like on the video, and we'll see you guys soon. Everyone, stay safe, stay well, take care. Bye bye.